Hello, my name is Elisa Moore, and I'm an Education Coordinator and Certified Housing Credit Counselor with Housing Credit Counseling Inc. in Topeka, Kansas. I'd first like to thank Angie Taylor for asking me to visit with you today about budgeting and debt reduction. She mentioned that you all completed a survey asking what topics she would like discussed as part of the wellness program at Capital Federal, and she told me this topic was ranked in the top three, and I completely understand why, since so much of us struggle with finances in our daily lives. So thank you, Angie. I'd also like to mention that you should have received a budget supplement that will contain several tools that I'll reference during class today. This supplement contains worksheets that we'll be covering during the class, but that are in an easy, full-size PDF version for you to print off, because obviously we want you to be able to use the examples we're providing. So first, I'd like to tell you a little bit about HCCI and the programs we have to offer. First, HCCI has been around since 1972. We first started with tenant landlord counseling, and I'm happy to say that our tenant landlord counselors are still thriving today. What they have done is taken the Kansas Residential Tenant Landlord Act and made it into easy to understand terms. If you have ever looked at a piece of legislation before, you'll quickly realize that there's a lot of legalese to sift through, and it can be very hard to interpret just for the regular Joe like all of us. So as a result, our tenant landlord counselors have devised two different handbooks, a tenant handbook and a landlord handbook, that can actually be downloaded for free from our website. If you are ever in that situation where you really don't know what your rights are, you can also give them a call as well at HCCI and share your concerns with them if you have questions regarding your rights. Also, they recognize that most individuals, when they have these types of concerns, have an immediate need to be seen by somebody to discuss them. So they do see people on a walk-in basis. So if you didn't need to come in, you would be seen the same day. Next, we also offer home buyer classes and education. We have a great program here in Topeka, and it's called TODO, which stands for Topeka Opportunity to Own. It's for individuals who fit into a certain income bracket, who might not otherwise be able to purchase a home. What makes this such a wonderful program is they only have to put $500 down. The house that they choose only has to be $65,000 or less. And then two other perks is that their closing costs are paid by Federal Home Loan Bank, which if you've ever purchased a home, you can know can be in the upwards of $6,000. And also, they are given what's called a soft second mortgage, because City of Topeka will provide $20,000 to the new homeowner to do any types of rehab that need to be done to the home prior to them taking possession, like making sure that the roof isn't, in good shape, that HVAC system is not going to blow up on them within the first year that they're there, because they know they're making an investment in you as you become a homeowner, and the last thing they want is for something to go wrong and the person to abandon the property. Also, if you stay in that home for 7 years, then and you go to sell it, you only have to pay back $7,500 versus $20,000 back to the city, and you never have to pay one dime on that soft second mortgage the whole time that you're in your home. So, like I said, it's a wonderful opportunity. We also offer home buyer counseling, so you'd actually meet with one of our certified housing credit counselors here, and you would be able to take a look at your finances, how much you have coming in versus what's going out, put a budget together, make sure that you are in a stable enough position to actually think about, possibly getting that first home and having to contend with a mortgage payment. Also, we would pull a credit report and just get a general idea of what your credit score is, because so many lenders expect a certain credit score in order for them to consider you as a borrower. So we offer those counselings as well, and we're probably best known for our consumer credit counseling, which started in 1985. So today we meet with individuals who have concerns just regarding their finances in general. Similar to home buyer counseling, we would pull a credit report for you. We'd look at your finances, discuss different options to possibly increase your income, reduce your expenses. And the great thing about all of our programs that we have to offer is that we can meet with people in person. If you fall outside of our general area where you might be able to come in to see us, we also do phone counsels, and we can do counsels through email as well as online. So we're pretty versatile and flexible as far as being able to serve the population that we do. We also provide student loan counseling, where we can inform individuals on what repayment options are available. If you've gone into default with your student loan, there's the possibility that you can rehabilitate it, get it out of default, so the government, doesn't try to take your tax refund or start garnishing you. And we can also just be that extra support for the person as well. Sometimes making that phone call can be very difficult when you're having difficulty making your payment. So we can just be there with the client to, sit there, be another set of ears for them. And that way, if they have any additional questions, we can be there to help them after the phone call as well. We offer mortgage default counseling, so if you're having any difficulty making your loan payment right now for your home, there is a piece of legislation out there to help individuals, and it would just be a matter of you getting in touch with your mortgage company, asking them for paperwork to do a loan modification, and then meeting with one of our certified housing credit counselors. We don't provide the loan modification to our clients. What we do is provide them support. So there's a lot of paperwork that has to be completed, and also a lot of paperwork on the client's end that needs to be sent in when they're requesting a loan modification. So we're the extra set of eyes in that regard to make sure that things are going in, and we can also follow up as needed with the mortgage company if it's necessary. So we offer a lot of wonderful services, and in addition to that, we do education as well. So like I get to go out into the community or even just speak through a webinar talking about credit, budgeting, student loans, identity theft. So if you have anybody in your community that might be interested and might benefit from what we have to offer as far as our classes, I encourage you to visit our website and take a look at our class list and give me a call, Elisa Moore, so we can get something scheduled for you in your area. We do have offices in Topeka, Lawrence, and Manhattan. Our main office is in Topeka. Our branch office is in Lawrence and Manhattan. All three of us serve a 22 county service area in Northeast Kansas. And our mission is to counsel and educate all people to achieve their personal housing and financial goals. As we go through this today, I'm also going to be talking about some supplemental information that should be attached to this webinar as well. So you're going to see some things up on your screen, some worksheets that I will definitely point out and let you know if they're part of the supplement. That way you can utilize those on your own rather than just printing off our PowerPoint and using them that way, because we definitely want to help people when we're doing this. So our first slide just talks about a financial literacy survey that was given by the National Foundation for Credit Counseling, stating that more than half, or 61% of U.S. adults, admit that they do not have a budget. As you can see, more than half. So a lot of us are out there who are not trying to live off of a budget right now. Some of us find it difficult. Others, they manage just fine. I think having a budget is mostly needed because you just never know when life is going to happen to you. And as long as you have something that you can rely on and that you can go back and tweak, it makes it a lot easier for those stressful times in our lives. Next, it says a third of U.S. adults, or more than 77 Americans, do not pay all of their bills on time, and 34% of adults carry credit card debt over month to month. So the main points we are going to discuss today are your relationship to money, how to come up with some financial goals for yourself, why they're important, how to track your spending, why it's necessary to have an emergency fund, what are non-monthly expenses, those periodic expenses you only pay a few times a year, what a spending plan is, which, by the way, spending plan is the new fancy way of saying budget because people got tired of hearing that bad B word all the time. So now they refer to it as a spending plan. What a paycheck to paycheck plan is, as well as some debt repayment options, and how to calculate your net worth. So what is your relationship to money? A lot of us carry around a lot of baggage, and a lot of it's financial with us, whether it's just, to and from work every day, to and from relationships that we get in and get out of. So how do we manage that? Also, we have concerns about, individuals who might make their net worth determine their self-worth. We hope that doesn't happen, but sometimes it does, and we would hope that maybe you would see things a little bit differently after you have taken a look at our presentation here today. And also, is it just too complicated? There is a lot that goes into, figuring out your income and your expenses and how to track expenses and keep receipts and everything that's necessary to ensure you stay on track in your budget. So once again, hopefully we'll share some things today that will make it a little bit easier for you so you'll actually want to, sit down and do that budget for the first time. And of course, if you have any questions, you can always give us a call here at HCCI and we'd be more than happy to go through it with you. So we like to think of the economic way of thinking, and that's wants versus needs, knowing that you can't have everything you want when you want it, that you have to make some sacrifices and some compromises when it comes to, staying on track in your budget. And, so we ask you to, develop what are your primary needs? What are your secondary needs? How do you prioritize expenses when you get into those months where you're kind of short on cash? And how does advertising affect you? There is a reason why those marketing people are out there. They do their job very well. So how enticing are they to the point of you going out and making an impulse purchase? So first we're going to talk about financial goal setting. This would be the first worksheet in your supplement packet. On it, it says choosing your financial goals, and it lists 3 different types of goals: your short-term goals, your midterm goals, and your long-term goals. Now, there are big differences to each of these goals. Your short-term goal is usually within 6 months or less. When I was younger in my 20s, I couldn't pay a bill to save my life on time, and it wasn't because I didn't have the money. It was solely because I was so unorganized. So when I first started to think about budgeting and getting myself organized, the first thing I said as a goal was I want to be able to pay my bills on time in full this month. And that's how you get started. It's the first step. And yes, I was able to pay them all on time. So I was very proud of myself. Midterm goals can be those goals between 1 to 5 years. So how are you doing with your vehicle? Are you starting to see it's going to start nickel and diming you to death? And maybe this would be a good time to start thinking about, saving up some money for a down payment, or just saving up cash if you wanted to purchase something outright. Also, how are things going around your house as far as appliances, your HVAC system? Once again, some of those can be quite costly, and if you're thinking 1 to 5 years, I know it might seem like a lot of time to some people, but time does move fast for others, and unfortunately those things can creep up on you. And if you're planning for them, they can have a lot less impact on your life. And then finally, we have your long-term goals. Long-term goals is anything for 5 years, plus. So we're thinking about maybe vacation or even your retirement. Maybe you've been giving it work for several years and, in a 401k or a 403b, and now you kind of want to venture out on your own and start, playing the stock market, or just, saving gradually on your own for retirement. So now we're going to talk a little bit about tracking expenses. So where are you at the end of the month? How do you go about it now as far as tracking your expenses? The next sheet that would be in your supplement packet is what's called a fritter finder. Fritter finder is very helpful for individuals, especially once we're thinking about doing a debt management plan through our agency. A debt management plan is when somebody comes in, they have a lot of credit card debt or medical bills, things that haven't gone into collections yet. And there's a possibility that we'd be able to assist them with a special plan that would lower their monthly interest rate and also lower their monthly payment on their credit cards. And we would put all of that money into one lump sum payment that would be made to HCCI, and then we would distribute that on a specific date to all of your creditors. The individual still keeps all of their creditors. They still receive their statements and everything like that. They're still in charge, but it just makes it a little bit easier on these individuals. So the way that a fritter finder might help someone, especially if they're thinking about doing a debt management plan, is usually you're pretty tight each month making your credit card payments. And this would allow them to see, okay, where does my extra money go throughout the month? And you say, extra money? I don't have any. Well, sometimes we purchase things, we get into a routine, we don't modify our routine when things change in our life financially. And so maybe you're used to going to Starbucks 3 days out of the week, and when something happens, you have a big medical bill you have to pay. Are you modifying that? Are you trimming that down a little bit? You're not going as often. And if you knew that maybe breaking the routine a little bit and taking a look at where your money's going, that can help you significantly when those little things do creep up. So on the fritter finder, it has all these expenses down the left side of it. These are typically things that, these aren't your mortgage, these aren't utilities, these are the little extras that we tend to spend money on. So along the top of it, it has the days of the month, and if you look at the second page, it goes all the way to day 31. And then you have this nifty little thing that's called a pocket tracker as well. And the pocket tracker you keep with you when you're out in the community, and you actually use this with the goals that you have set on your budget. So what is a goal on your budget? Well, if you like to dine out and your budget says it only allows for you to dine out maybe $50 worth each month, and you were to use your pocket tracker for each pay period, then where it says food and the dollar sign, you'd put in 25. That would be the first paycheck. You can spend $25 out of that paycheck. You can spend $25 out of the next paycheck. So as a result, you would put that $25 up there. And then anytime you went out to eat, whether it's through the drive-through, you went out, with your friends somewhere to a restaurant, you're going to keep that receipt and you're going to transfer whatever it costs over to your pocket tracker. Then when you get home, then you would transfer that information over to the master sheet, which is the fritter finder. And that fritter finder then by the end of the month, as long as you're diligent and committed to, actually tracking and putting everything on there that needs to be, then you would be able to see at the end of the month exactly where all your money's going. So it's a wonderful tool, and that's why we always encourage people who are thinking about doing a debt management plan through us to do it first, because sometimes they just don't have enough money and they don't realize how much extra money they're spending throughout the month on some of the luxury type expenses that we were discussing just a bit ago. Also know that it's important to save your receipts. When saving receipts, people would need to do it to use against their bank statement when they get it, or if you have a credit card and you get a credit card statement each month, you want to keep your receipts for that as well. Also, anymore, if you purchase an item from a store and if it were to break, manufacturer defect, something of that nature, and you wanted to take it back to that store, if you don't have that receipt, most places aren't going to let you bring it back to them or even trade it out for something new. You have to have that receipt anymore. Also, there are plenty of apps that are out there for people to utilize on their smartphone. So if you're more of a techie individual, I'd encourage you to look into those. A lot of them are free. Also, if you like to do things online, there's a wonderful website called www.mint.com that's available. All you have to do is register your information. It's completely free. And if you're the type of person that likes pie charts and colorful bar graphs and stuff like that, then this would probably be the place for you because that's how it's going to show you you're spending all of your money. So, and it's a wonderful tool to have. Okay, so next we're going to talk about paying yourself first. What does that mean? Well, it's saying that maybe you should set up a little money aside for yourself. So from when you get your paycheck, as you can see on the screen, it talks about your emergency fund, your periodic fund, and your retirement fund. You can have just one savings account and have all of these items in it and just kind of keep track of what goes where money-wise. Or if you want to be more organized, if it's easier for you, you can have different accounts for each of these. An emergency fund entails 3 to 6 months of your monthly expenses. These are things that you absolutely have to pay every month that come out of your income. And the reason why you want 3 to 6 months of those monthly expenses is because these are for the bigger things that can happen in your life. For instance, the death of a spouse, unemployment, if you get divorced, I mean, there's going to be a lot going on in your life during this period of time. And the last thing you're going to have to do is stress over how you're going to pay your monthly expenses. So that's why it's a good idea to already have that amount of money set aside, untouched. This is not the type of money that you use for when your car breaks down or you're short 1 month. These are solely for those big items that we just discussed. Next, it talks about your periodic expenses. Periodic expenses are those non-monthly expenses. So for instance, you only have to renew the tag on your car once a year. Also, you're thinking about vacation, you have to do some home repairs, a lot of people for their air conditioning system and their furnace, they'll have somebody come in and do a maintenance check, once, every season or so to make sure that everything's going to be functioning correctly. Also, maintenance on your vehicle. These are things you don't typically do every month, depending on how much you travel. And so there is a way to be able to plan for those expenses in your budget so they don't accidentally creep up on you unexpectedly and then possibly not being able to pay another bill because you're having to pay for one of these periodic expenses. Also, once again, discussing retirement, it's always good to just, save on your own. Just have a savings account, period, even if it's not strictly for retirement. So here's some more non-monthly or periodic expenses that I was just sharing with you. Another one that used to always get me was school. When my kids were younger and I'd have to enroll them in school supplies, new shoes, clothing, everything. I mean, that money racked up pretty quick as far as being able to pay for everything I needed to for two children. Also, when we're thinking about gift giving throughout the year, so the holidays, birthdays, how many people in the family do you have to plan to give to each year? And you can actually take that lump sum total, divide it by 12, and that'll tell you exactly how much you'd have to save back each month. And this is a wonderful tool. This is in your supplement as well. Schedule non-monthly expenses, so you can see on the left side all the different items that might happen periodically throughout the year. And then across the top, it has all the months of the year. How much it would cost you yearly is that following column total, and then the average monthly amount you'd have to set back. So for instance, if your car tag cost you $120 a year typically, you take that 120, you divide it by 12, and then that would tell you that you would have to set back $10 a month just for your tag. And so it's a really nice tool to have because then you can physically see each month how much extra money you're going to have to put in your savings account to account for these non-monthly expenses. So now we're going to talk about your spending plan. And if you remember what I said a little earlier, that's your budget. So your spending plan, you're going to be talking about your rent, your mortgage, your utilities, groceries, and that does include dining out as well. Any clothing that you might have to purchase, and we tell people to put clothing in the annual type expense and then break it down on a monthly basis because we don't typically go out and spend money on the same things every month. And taking into account shoes, you might do that once every 6 months or once a year. Undergarments, that might be every 6 months, once a year. So that's why we say don't guess as far as monthly. Figure up how much it really did cost you in order to get an accurate synopsis of what you're going to have to save back each month. Any medical expenses that you currently have, or if you pay premiums on medical insurance on your own or life insurance, prescriptions, all of that has to be taken into account on your budget, as well as any educational or sports activities your kids might be participating in. And then once again, always think about mad money. I think that's what turns people off so much about budgeting is they think they can't still have fun. And we highly encourage people to set some money aside. If nothing else, then to reward yourself. You deserve it. You're keeping yourself on track. You're staying within your means. So always be sure to make sure you have a little money saved back just for yourself to enjoy life with. Also think about transportation costs. Are you currently paying on a vehicle? Is it still have a lien on it? Also, is it insured? Do you have to pay that on a quarterly basis? Do you pay it monthly? Do you pay it once a year? Once again, those can fall under those periodic expenses. Also, if you pay your registration once a year, then you have to plan for that as well. And also you have to have gas money to get you from point A to point B. So you can't forget that one as well for transportation. And then once again, making sure that you're paying yourself first and have some type of a savings account. So the next worksheet that we have that would be in your supplement is the Paycheck to Paycheck worksheet. This is the one worksheet that would have greatly helped me back in my 20s because I refer to this as the Getting Organized worksheet. First, it shows all the different types of expenses that individuals might have. In the next column, it shows the due date, which means that you would physically have to write in when all of those expenses are due. Next column is your budget column. That's how much that particular expense is going to cost you that much in order to pay it in full. And then it has 4 columns that say first check, second check, third check, and fourth check. This is a great tool to have if you are cohabitating with someone, or have a significant other, somebody else is contributing to the household expenses other than you. Because then you can put all of your paychecks down on one worksheet and you can decide who's paying what. I don't know how many times in the past when I was much younger, it would be, oh, I thought you paid that this month. No, I thought you paid it. And so this is a wonderful way for each person to know how much they're going to be expected to pay for each expense each month. Also, for those larger expenses like your mortgage or your rent payment, it's always a good idea, even if you're short on money, to always ensure that you are making those payments. If you don't pay your mortgage, then there's a good chance if you get behind on that one, that's really hard to catch up on. So we highly encourage you to pay that one first, as well as your rent payment, because nobody wants to get evicted. So if you have those types of expenses, then sometimes you have a lot of difficulty making those payments, and especially if you're just trying to use one check for that particular payment. So you can always just pick and choose how to half things out. So if your rent was $500 a month, rather than saving back one paycheck to pay that rent payment, you can actually split it. So you could take 250 from your first paycheck and 250 from your second paycheck and put them together and then write your check to your landlord. We highly encourage people to have insurance. If you're currently employed, then a lot of it's probably provided to you as far as your health insurance and maybe even life insurance. But you absolutely have to have some type of auto insurance. Always make sure that you're not overpaying, but always make sure that you're covered enough as well. So we always encourage people to read the fine print when it comes to changing insurance. As far as renter's insurance, we say it only costs about $15 to $25 a month. People are under the assumption that when they're renting, that if something were to happen to the home they're in, whether it's a fire, tornado, or it gets robbed or something like that, that the landlord is responsible for everything, and that's completely false. The landlord has homeowners insurance that just covers the dwelling, the shell that you're living in, and everything that you bring into that dwelling then is your responsibility. And like I said, renter's insurance is very inexpensive, and most times you can combine it with your auto insurance policy, which can even lessen the cost more. And then if you do own your home, then obviously you have to have homeowners insurance. But these are things that are there for a reason, and we highly encourage people to have those safeguards in place for themselves and their family. So you have a lot of choices to make, don't you, when it comes to your money? A lot of decision making. Probably the biggest questions we would get, as counselors is, well, how do I increase my income? How do I reduce my expenses? And that's what we would discuss with individuals when they have an actual session with us. But some ideas to increase your income, you could be looking at, possibly getting a second job to help supplement. I know that's not, the thing that all of us want to hear, but that is a possibility. Also, if you have somebody who's working in the house that's younger, maybe they could start helping out with, some of the groceries or paying for their own gas money. I mean, there's a lot that can be done to modify your budget that most of us just really don't think about when we're in the midst of it. Also, ideas to reduce expenses. So I'd use the example of someone who I know who goes to Starbucks 3 times a week and doesn't modify their budget when things happen. I mean, that's considered a luxury. That's something we don't ever tell people stop doing this, whatever it is, but we do encourage them to trim things back, or see it for what it is. And so maybe seeing things on black and white on paper for you would help you as well. So in addition to that worksheet, they also talk about the paycheck to paycheck plan. These are different methods you can use on your own to stay on track, especially when you are living paycheck to paycheck. So one of them would be the envelope method. That's where you have different envelopes and you write on the fronts of them exactly what that money is for that you're keeping in each envelope. There are online resources available or software. So if you like Quicken or any of those types, those are available. Also, when I first started out, the calendar was my friend. I used to always write in when certain bills were due when I started budgeting, and that was very helpful to me. Or you can just do old-fashioned paper and pencil. There's nothing wrong with keeping a ledger or tracking things like that. I know that our fritter finder probably seems very archaic to some people, but it is what it is, and it's very helpful to a lot of individuals, including myself. So, and then in the supplemental packet, we also have what's called a prioritizing expenses worksheet. This is extremely beneficial for individuals who have something come up in their life unexpectedly. And it's a nice blueprint for what needs to be paid each month if that were to happen. So once again, in the left column is all the monthly expenses that we anticipate people might have. In the budget column, you'd write whatever that expense would be that has to be paid and the amount for it. And then the survival column, there are 5 things that absolutely need to be paid each month. If nothing else, then to safeguard yourself, your family, um, from bad things that could happen if they're not paid. So one of them would be your rent or your mortgage. Nobody wants to go into foreclosure if they're a homeowner. Nobody wants to get evicted. The second thing would be your utilities. And the reason why we say utilities is because, you know what, if you get shut off, you have to, pay more to get them turned back on. And it's so much easier just to open up that line of communication, whether it's with your mortgage company, your landlord, or the utility companies, and just let them know, hey, I'm in a bind this month. Is it possible to make some type of a payment arrangement just to get me over this hump? Um, the third thing that would need to be paid is anything that has to do with your vehicle. So making sure that you're tagged, you're insured. If you have a loan payment, please be sure to make it, or else the worst can happen, being repossessed. And also having gas to get from point A to point B. No good in having a job if you don't have the vehicle to get you from point A to point B to make your money. Number four would be groceries. And the reason why you want to think about groceries is I have met with individuals before during a counseling session, and I ask them, how much do you spend on groceries? And they say to me, well, it's whatever I have left over at the end of the month. And to me, that just doesn't seem practical. I would never wait until the end of the month to eat or to feed people in my family. Somehow, if we're short on cash, we're going to find a way to sustain ourselves. So I would say, make it a priority. And it tends to help more, to keep you on track when you're going to the grocery store as well, if you know how much you can spend within your budget. And then the fifth thing is anything that's government related. So if you have a student loan, if you're paying on court costs, or you have an attorney, or anything of that nature, anything that's government related, where they can take your tax refund from you, or they can garnish you, always be sure to try and at least open up that line of communication with those entities, to possibly make some type of a payment arrangement. And then the next column is the comforts column. And in the comforts column, we hope that if you're not already there, then you will be someday. And that's where you can pay all of your monthly expenses on time, in full. And you might not have a penny left over to your name after that's completed, but at least they're all paid. And then the final column is the above and beyond column. And that's where you have a little bit of money left over at the end of the month. And what are you going to do with it? Are you going to put it away into, your retirement, or saving for a vacation? When we're thinking about our net worth, we are discussing our assets and subtracting our liabilities from that. So what does that mean? Well, your assets are anything that's cash related, cash in your pocket, cash that's in your checking account, your savings account at the bank or the credit union. Anything that you own outright. So if you have a vehicle and it's paid for, that's an asset. Liabilities is anything that you still owe money on. So if you have a car and you're making a car payment each month, that's technically a liability. If you owe money for any types of loans, even if it's personal loans, those are considered liabilities. And then, like I said, that's how you determine your net worth. The aim is always to increase your net worth by 5% annually. Well, I don't anticipate all of us are going to get a 5% raise at work. So what that actually means is that as things get paid off, we're not replacing them with more things that we have to pay for. And this represents the results of all your prior financial activities as well. So you have to take everything into consideration. So once again, here's just a list of all of your assets. So cash value, life insurance, liquid assets, real estate that you own outright, any investments that you have, and your personal property. And then here's the list of liabilities, your current debts, mortgages, loans, and other debts as well. Always know that there are resources available in your community. United Way 211 is available online, or you can call it on the phone. Lifeline for phone service. A lot of utility companies offer a level or average pay, and that's wonderful for your budget, because then you know exactly how much to plan for each month when it comes to utilities. And then food sharing programs and hospital financial programs. One thing that I'll mention about the hospitals, at least around here, is they don't seem to wait around very long for payment anymore. It used to be, you might go 3 to 6 months and you'd be fine. And I'm seeing more and more that hospitals are sending on non-payment accounts to collections fairly quickly. So a lot of hospitals have different hardship programs where they might write off some or even all of the expense. So it never hurts to just get in contact with them. By far, the best thing you can do in any situation that involves money is just open up that line of communication with whomever it is that you're having difficulty making payment to. Okay. Well, if you do have any questions regarding anything that I covered today, please feel free to give us a call. Our website is on there as well. And once again, just to reiterate, we do have educational classes, other educational classes available that are listed on our website, as well as that tenant handbook and landlord handbook as well for anybody who has questions about their rights. It's been very nice visiting with you today, and please feel free to give us a call if we can be of assistance to you in the future.